Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Mumbai Angels Network Reboot Navigating the New Normal session. Before I begin, a quick request to all of you to please keep your devices muted. This will help us hear the speakers clearly. We at Mumbai Angels Network have always believed in leading from the front and present a seven-part series discussing key aspects of the issues currently impacting the startup ecosystem and how we, collectively, can take steps to overcome them. Today's session is divided into 40 minutes of panel discussion and 20 minutes of Q&A. Please feel free to send in your questions to us during the chat. Our team will curate them and we'll try our best to get them answered by our esteemed panelists. If you wish to direct your question to a specific panelist, do let us know that in your chat. The session today is on workforce management and culture, where industry leaders will talk about the strategy for workforce management, positive reinforcement, and maintaining semblance of work culture among the employees, even during the current crisis.
Hello.
Our panelists for today are Rahul Sinha, Chief Human Resources Officer, Pidilite Industries. Rahul has a rich experience of over 2 decades and moved to HR after 22 years in sales and marketing. He has held senior positions in sales and marketing branding across leading organizations in different capacities, including Pidilite Industries, Birla Sun Life Insurance, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Kotak OM Mutual Life Insurance, and ITC Group. He brings experience of both large and small companies, evolving processes and systems, and multi-industry frameworks. The next panelist is P. Vishwanath, Executive Director, KPMG India, with 19 years of experience in business consulting and consumer markets across India and Middle East. Vishwanath has worked across consumer goods, agribusiness, and retail domains. His expertise includes large-scale organizational transformation, growth and market entry strategy, organization alignment, pre and post-deal advisory. Apart from this, he also specializes in digital transformation for retail and FMCG businesses, order to cash efficiency, operational movement, and cost reduction overhead. The session for today will be moderated by Vinod Sood, Managing Director at Hughes Systems Corporation, an engineering and R&D services and solution company. Vinod is a veteran of high-tech software industry. During his career spanning over 30 years, he has built high-performance teams at premier R&D organizations in India. Vinod has an exceptional track record of building profitable and sustainable institutions from conceptualization to maturity. I would like to thank all our panelists for their time and consideration, and also for giving us and the audience the opportunity to hear their insights. A final quick reminder to all of you to mute your devices to enable you to hear the speakers clearly, to send in your questions via chat for the team to curate. And without further ado, let's join the session. Over to you, Vinod.
Thank you, Shivangi, and good afternoon, friends. Welcome to this webinar, and I'm sure you will be able to take some learnings out of this webinar. As we all know, the coronavirus pandemic has created an unprecedented situation for organizations worldwide. In order to contain the spread of the virus and to ensure employee safety, organizations and local authorities have mandated work from home. This unpredicted reality represents uncharted territory for many organizations. I don't have the data from India, but even in US, according to US Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2017-18, only about 25% of US workers worked at home at least occasionally, and only 15% had days on which they only worked at home. Are organizations prepared for this sudden transition? Given the scale and the scope of what is being attempted, the answer is clearly no. Organizations are not set up to handle this. Leaders and managers who used to having employees on site are not prepared for this. They are wondering what are the best practices, what tools their employees need to use to work effectively remotely. They have questions like, how do I know my employees are actually working? what is the impact on productivity, how to measure productivity, and how to review them. For tech companies, work from home was still something which they were used to and their employees had experience with. However, outside the tech sector, mandating work from home has led to a lot of complications and issues. Few companies had work from home policies, but these were short-term needs or specific do not have the resources and the tools to fully embrace work from home. So what do the leaders and managers need to do to help their employees embrace this change? Our panelists today will try to answer these questions and some others which are related to this topic and the associated area of workforce management and culture in the work from home or remote work environment. So what I would request is both the panelists, starting with Rahul, can talk for about 3 to 4 minutes some of the specific questions which we have uh, related to this topic. I'll direct to the panelists and hear their views on those questions. After that, we will have the house open for questions, and between me and the panelists, we will try to address as many questions as we can. So over to you, Rahul. Rahul, you need to unmute
Yeah, yeah,
yourself.
yeah. I realize that. I realize
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Something that is still taking
Yes.
something to get used to.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I completely agree with Vinod that any kind of statistics that we would compare pre this situation and the current, it just shows that there are three key things happening around us. One, we are in uncharted territory. We, at a given date in Pidilite, would have not more than 1 to 1.5% of our employees on work from home. Most managers would find it difficult to operate when part of their team was working from home. They would accept it because that is what the company policy was, but it wasn't easy. Third, our collaborating software, which was Teams, Microsoft Teams, had the highest number of meeting in its lifetime before the lockdown happened, as 8 meetings in a given week. That was the highest number of Microsoft Team meetings we saw. Most people would like to do face-to-face meeting, and I'm just talking of the head office. Because head office is where we actually tested work from home. Remote work from home remote meetings on Teams was anyways part of life. Now, post that things have changed. Now we have 100% of us working from home. We are clocking 1100 meetings on team per week. Whether you like it or not, your entire team is working from home, and except for the first 3-4 days, people did change, which comes to the second point, that people have learned how to adapt to this. Human beings survived so long possibly because we know how to adapt. This is also one of those examples. And the third interesting thing that is coming is this quest for finding the perfect solution. Even this meeting is trying to navigate this unknown and say, how will we get to make the most out of this? And we have also tried our hand at it, and in some ways we have been able to find few things that help us. We've also figured out few things that doesn't work for us. And therefore, now the whole approach is to balance that. Hopefully, we'll be able to put something worth your while as we go forward. So back to you, Vinod.
Yeah, so Ms. Vishwanath, if you can share your thoughts, and then we will get to some specific issues where I would like to hear our panelists' perspective.
Sure. Thanks, Vinod. Thanks, Rahul. It was good to know that from 8 meetings a week, you're now clocking 1,100 meetings a week on Zoom, on Teams. Historically, see, I come from an industry which, as Vinod rightly said, was kind of given more receptive. And because we are from consulting, a lot of our work used to happen on site, where we are sitting at the client's place trying to get data and do some analysis. Or then if there is no project, we expect people to come to our relevant offices. But increasingly globally, consulting was moving towards a state where work from home was a kind of an accepted norm. Some organizations were far more mature in the curve. Some organizations were still trying to catch up. I think this situation has kind of balanced everyone, right? I'm going to give 2-3 personal observations that I have found. I think number one, as Rahul correctly said, the situation has opened up the eyes of millions of managers across the world that we can work with people in a remote manner. All right. Now, in a lot of cases, people may realize that this is not as efficient as what it was before, but we'll come to that later. The second point is a lot of managers are feeling a little worried whether they're able to produce the same output, be it in clocking sales, be it in making the required number of payments or whatever. The way I see going forward, especially for a country like India, is I see that this a month or 2 months of lockdown and work from home is going to make a lot of us look at freelancing as a career more actively. Because Indian society, if you look at it, is still not very open to the concept of people sitting at home doing freelancing work. And they expect that if you're in workforce, you have an office, you go to the office and you come back. I think we're going to see 10 years, 5 years from now, Indians as a society will accept freelancing, work from home as maybe the norm. It will also have a lot of implications on commercial real estate, right? It could have a huge implication on transportation services and the way mega cities are being managed or planned in a overcrowded situation like India, right? And as Rahul correctly said, I think all of us are adopting. I was just telling a joke that today, if you're a typical Mumbaikar or Delhi or Bangalore, the biggest stress on a work day would be commute, because I would assume you would spend at least 2 hours commuting. As against that, in the lockdown, the biggest stress is to be present in 10 Zoom calls, starting from 9 in the morning till 9 in the night. So the travel stress has given way to a Zoom stress, right? But going forward, I think it's going to change the way HR looks at workforce. It's going to change the way companies look at real estate. It's going to change the way a lot of workforce, especially people who are sitting on the fence of saying, should they do freelancing vis-a-vis continuing, they look at their careers. I think this is going to change in a country like India. And that's a few points from my side. Over to you, Vinod.
Yeah, thank you, Vishwanath, and very interesting observations that in India, and I now tend to agree with you. Freelancing was not looked as a very respectable kind of a option, because whenever somebody said I'm freelancing, it was as if that person was between jobs or trying to find a job, but looks like in coming years that will become a norm. And the second thing, very interestingly, as you said, that the stress points have shifted from commute to Zoom stress. Very, very interesting. So, Rahul, uh, I have a question for you, and maybe you can share your experience and perspective. This COVID-19 pandemic has fundamentally changed the way organizations operate. And this, as we just discussed, is going to continue for the foreseeable future, right? And remote works becomes a new reality. How do leaders, managers, and individual employees are making this shift?
So, yes, you're right. The new normal, as the term that started doing the rounds very early as soon as COVID-19 came on the horizon, has clearly changed the way leadership of any company had to adapt. And I see that fundamentally the leadership is doing a couple of things which are different than what leadership does in normal cases. So I'm going to put together what leadership does in normal cases, and then I'm going to just take the COVID-19 extension. One of the key things of leadership is to learn. Whatever is happening around us, we have to understand it better. We have to learn how to handle it, and we have to therefore find and do number two, which is to plan. And once you plan, then the third piece is to master, win, exploit, depending upon what your strategies are. I think in case of COVID-19, the first thing that leadership had to learn was that it needed us to start operating in a different world. It needed us to quickly reprioritize what was important to us. Employees' health became very important, and therefore most companies which heard about all this started moving rapidly towards protecting their key asset. Quickly understanding how to implement work from home, enabling that, breaking your company into multiple groups, creating business continuity plans. We took care of the fact that anybody who was more than a certain cutoff age, who was suffering with hypertension or diabetes, women who were pregnant or had younger kids, people who had dependent old age parents living at home, we quickly drew up a list of them and we quickly sent them on compulsory work from home immediately. The remaining team we then divided into 2 to 3 parts, and we ensured that only one part was available in the company on any given day. And we switched every third day, we had the earlier team coming on. So the adapting to working with employee health being central was the first thing. Second thing was to quickly understand how to protect your larger ecosystem. We understood that a lot of vendors that depended upon us would actually all of a sudden come to a grinding halt if businesses stopped. And when the numbers started rising, and because we have companies operating in different parts of the world, we were also hearing about what was happening in Italy. We have a JV partner who is from Italy, so we were listening what was happening in Italy. And therefore, we started bringing those learnings into play, and we quickly started advising those vendors who are dependent on us, as well as customers for whom we are a key supplier. And we started working with them, ramping up stocks. We could not succeed because the lockdown came very rapidly. But we at least ensured that we moved in that direction. And once we were able to resume our factories, because part of our adhesives go to essential supplies, we were able to start bringing back support back to them. So this is how the leadership kept adapting. What was happening to our employees in the beginning thought that work from home was like a holiday. They were at home, and the first reaction was there is no support, so we have to do a lot of household work. So how can we work and do household work? So there needs to be a compromise. And this also meant that the managers had to understand that the employees are not really available 100%. They have to balance both sides. So I do realize that today maybe we have our employees available between 70 to 100%. Some days they are fully available, some days they are less available. They are balancing their home as well as work, and therefore people are adjusting to that.
Right.
Final word that I would say is the understanding of what you could postpone as an expense, whether it was at an individual level or as a company level, started coming to the forefront. So today, I think most of the companies mentally are ready to work on a much more leaner resource base and try to make their resources go a longer distance. This is also happening at an individual level. So possibly, in a manner of speaking, people have reset themselves a bit, and let's see how it unfolds.
No, thank you, Rahul, and very useful insights and perspectives coming from an industry which is not classically where you would think that work from home will be possible in the older scheme of things. Now, shifting gears, Vishwanath, I would like to hear your views about the culture, because company culture is something, and this is again the way we used to think till now, that company culture is built and need to do in a work from home, remote work environment to create the right work culture?
Like, thanks, Vinod. And it's a very critical question, given that I think a lot of our audience are also the startup community or companies which are still trying to grow and on that size. Physically being able to see, to interact, to communicate with fellow workers is a very critical part of culture building, right? And we all know this. One of my observations of why startups, some of the successful startups, fire the way they are is purely because of the bonhomie that forms between the promoters and the initial employees, right? I mean, I worked with a lot of clients, and a lot of my clients or small clients used to always recollect. When we started, we worked out of that small office where 10 of us used to sit. That is what builds the culture. Now, suddenly, there is no physical interaction, right? There is no chatting jokes with samosa and coffee or tea, right? And we realize that that's a very important part of building that company cohesiveness. I think a lot of HR folks are trying to overcome this by genuinely saying, okay, we know there is a problem, but we will try our best to help overcome this, right? And I think you mentioned, and even Rahul mentioned, a lot of companies are now saying, okay, wellness of employees, of employees and employee families becomes very important. We know it's very difficult for you to go to a gym. We'll try to do some online sessions for you. We will try to do online rethinking exercises. We can help you do, again, the medium of delivery of most of these is online because that's the best we can do. But I think one critical element here of how this culture can be percolated is if managers and people who have employees working under them go that extra mile now to pick up the phone, talk to them on a casual basis.
Right.
I think that is extremely critical, right? If we have a manager who has 6 people working under him, if that manager is picking up the phone, talking to them, saying, okay, what happened in your house today? Okay, all well, all right, great. What's your kid doing? Not necessarily related to work at all, right? But I think the onus now comes back to every team manager or a team lead to ensure that he or she is able to connect at a personal level with his or her team.
Right.
And that is what is going to build the culture for the next couple of weeks.
Right. No, absolutely rightly said. Basically, what the managers have to do is they have to connect frequently, almost on a daily basis with their team members, with their employees, and connect without any agenda. Right? Don't wait for the team member or the employee to connect with you that he has a problem or he has a question, but just without an agenda, call and say how things are going, or maybe I thought you might have a question for me, or generally how's your family, and so on and so forth. So absolutely over communicate very frequently, because that is what will help in bridging the distance and the remoteness. Coming back to Rahul, again, one of the classical things with the remote working becoming the norm, access to managers in the classical sense will suffer. And we briefly talked about this, and Vishwanath touched upon this. Things like quick answer pointers to unblock progress, information that managers are privy to before others in the organization get to know, informal feedback and while talking back or together after a meeting, all these things which were a norm are no longer there. So what can the managers do to make sure that they're available to their teams in a remote work from home environment?
So, very, very important point, Vinod. I think, and Vishwanath very nicely put it when he said, culture gets created, especially in smaller team, younger businesses, around this informal chat and the informal bonhomie that's created. That's also a place where a lot of stress is removed by the leaders, because you sense what is happening in a meeting, or you sense what's happening to an individual. Sometimes the individual has the courage to reach out to you, and sometimes the body language tells you that you need to reach out to them and put them at ease.
Right.
Now, those things are not available at this point of time. So what we are doing, and this is what is the part of learning that is happening simultaneously, we started doing these meetings that we call as unmeeting. And unmeeting is essentially not structured. It allows managers to just spend some time with their team, chat, do whatever they want. I'm aware of people who have had their team to basically make a cup of coffee, get together for a 35-minute, 40-minute chat, and they've just chatted. I'm aware of conversations that have turned from informal chat to something that was bothering everybody, and they've tried to sort it out. I'm aware of people playing games with my own team, we played 6 1-minute games, which were all essentially silly stuff, but a great stress buster. We thought of doing this as a once in a month thing. Employees have come back saying we want to do this every week. Now that's the escape that is happening. Personally, what I have also realized is that while a lot of these meetings happen with videos off, and you are not actually looking at anybody, and per se you are not able to judge the body language, one has to be more perceptive and reach out to individuals who are under delivery stress and talk to them. So end of the day, I am now marking about 45 minutes to an hour at times to just talk to people who I have not either chatted today, or some of them who I chatted today and I realized I did not really had a great meeting. So this personal access is very, very important. And I would urge everybody to realize that don't chock-a-block your calendar. Leave aside some time on a daily basis or a weekly basis to just talk to your people and ask them human questions and not really work questions. Allow them to ask you anything that they want to. A lot of it possibly is in your bank and you're going to encash it at this time, but it's good time to make a withdrawal.
Right. No, I think Rahul, what you said is very important, and again something which was classical wisdom. We used to tell our employees that don't come to me with problems, come to me with the solution. Again, I think we have to turn this on its head. As you said, we have to encourage the employers in this challenging situation and tell them that if you have a problem, come and talk about that problem. Because in this kind of a scenario, it might so happen, again, based on what used to be the norm, that employers are not even approaching you with the problems. And these are problems which are new problems, very unpredictable, and nobody had ever seen or experienced. So that is, again, very important. Coming back to Vishwanath, and I think this question is very relevant, Vishwanath, to you, given that you are from consulting background and you work as a consultant. One of the things in work to home, remote work environment, which everybody is talking about, is what is the impact on productivity? How do you measure your employees' productivity, and how do you do their performance assessment? How do you review the work? So if you can share some thoughts on this.
Right.
Topic.
I think to start with, Rahul had a very strong point, right? In today's context, see, today's work from home is not like any other work from home. The reason being, no maids, no cooks. So you have to do the vessels. If you have a spouse who is also working, she or he may also have his or her work, right? So you cannot say, okay, 9 to 5 is my office time and I won't do anything, can't work, right? I think across even large societies are having very less manpower to clean up the right from the waste paper, the waste baskets, the garbage. So there is an increase of personal administrative work, as I would like to call this. And therefore, in today's context, if an average employee, let's assume, used to turn 100 units of work in office, it was by far accepted that if he does a work from home, his productivity would be anywhere between 70 to 95, depending on how efficient he or she is. But in today's context, I would say it is more like 60 to 80, right? For example, there are societies in Bombay where they have given slots for you to go pick up groceries downstairs.
Right, right,
So what happens if your slot is at 12:30 in the afternoon,
right.
right? So I think in today's context, we'll all have to accept that there is a dip in the productivity. Now, having said it, how do we ensure that the employees are able to turn around what they're supposed to deliver? It has become all the more critical that we draw up weekly tasks for our people, right? I think that has to be extremely clear and communicated across the entire team. Monday to Friday, this is what this team has to accomplish. And then we can let the team lead or the team manager further break it down into the individual tasks. Some may think it is micromanagement, but I would rather say that in today's context, such a collaborative view to saying what will we deliver is so very important, because end of the day, every organization needs to work.
Right.
Right. So that is one. The second is being very upfront about what is the accepted standard of delivery. Now, most of the companies, most of the tasks, this would already be clarified. But still, it may not be a bad idea to re-communicate what is the minimum standard of work required to be delivered. Right? I think these two become very important to measure the productivity of employees. The third thing which I've been telling some of my clients to do is to break all the roles in the organization into three buckets. Roles where a physical access to something is essential. Like I think in Pidilite, a factory manager has to be in the factory. Physical access becomes important. Two, roles where digital access is required, like a finance guy having access to the ERP. Third, roles where there is a lot of access and interaction with other team members. Right? Like in your organization, maybe in my organization. Maybe it's a startup who's designing an app where the UX guy has to keep interacting with the end users and other departments. Right? Now, if you block your roles into these three buckets and then come with a strategy to say, how do we measure productivity across each of these buckets? It will only help organizations to make a much structured view of defining output against which the productivity can be measured.
No, very, very useful insights, very useful. And I'm sure some of the startup founders and the senior leadership from these startups would have derived good inputs from what you said, Vishwanath. So before we wrap up and have answered some questions from the audience, what I would like both Rahul and Vishwanath you to share is that given that our organizations have been in this work from home, remote work environment for more than a month now, what are the major issues or challenges which your employees have shared while working from home, and what has been some of the solutions to address those challenges? Because I'm sure whatever you folks share will be of great use to the audience, to the folks who are operationalizing this work from home back in their organizations. So maybe Vishwanath,
Sure.
First you can share, and then Rahul can share. And
so I will maybe start with the Maslow's hierarchy. A majority of our people complained about internet because having adequate bandwidth of internet becomes so critical and if you're in a finance role, accessing ERP and be it SAP or Oracle or Dynamics or whatever, your ability of the internet bandwidth becomes so critical. That's a big point. A lot of people have come up and said, look, we never thought we'll work so much extensively from home. We don't have a workplace like a table and a chair. Right. And that's it may seem very trivial. But if you just imagine an average guy, if you're not going to have a kid with a study table, or you never thought of putting a study table in your house, where do you sit and work? Right? I myself was forced to use the iron table because my kids' online classes started. And I didn't want to sit on the bed and work. So I took out the foldable iron table and I was working on it, because these are very trivial, practical problems.
Yeah.
Right. The third, I think, angle is a lot of people have had a problem in trying to say, how do I fire the best of my productivity? They are getting disturbed. Right. I told my teams that have this thing of maybe a 2-hour accelerated burst time, where you say to your house, your family, you say to your office that, okay, 10 to 12, I'm not getting disturbed. It's pure office time. Right. Maybe it's 3 to 5 for somebody. Or as a team, you collectively decide this week, it is 1 to 4. That's our accelerated productive time. Right. Yeah. That will help you as a team, because then you know that in this 3-hour time, everyone agrees we are going to be with our computers, with our phones, ready for work. Right. The fourth, I think, what has happened is, I think, and I think some of the HRs also have realized, even though it's work from home, we will need to appreciate that work-life balance still has to be maintained. So just because it's work from home, let's not call a team call at 8 p.m. Right. If you're offshore, if your client is in the US, it's a different context. But if your client is Indian and you're servicing Indian clients, unless it's absolutely essential,
be sensitive to the personal time, and divide the day very clearly into the office day and your personal time and your home time. Right.
Yeah, I think these are some of the 3-4 things which I kept hearing from my own teammates and people.
Very good. Rahul, if you would like to share your learning.
Your voice kind of trailed off. I am.
Rahul, if you could share some of your learning.
Yeah, so I was requesting.
Sure. So first and foremost, I think Vishwanath covered a lot of great points, and learning has been similar. Some responses are different, some ideas are great. So I'm personally picking up this accelerated burst time as a great idea. In fact, so logical in its conceptualization. I will add two more points over and above what Vishwanath put out. The first is, we realized very early that one of the challenges beyond the internet and the workspace for our employees is going to be no familiarity with working alone. Most people, the default way of working is, you're doing something and you're talking to somebody else and asking a question, and then you continue doing. That habit has been formed over a number of years. They just don't know how to work alone. So, and it is very difficult for them to continuously keep talking to somebody on phone and keep working, because phone is still taking some amount of mind space more than what a typical conversation does.
Very interesting.
We therefore started helping our people to learn how to work on documents simultaneously. SharePoint and OneDrives, which were essentially just thought of as a folder which was not on your computer, started becoming more powerful. And I still believe we are up on the learning curve as far as that is concerned. The second thing that happened was IT was considered to be a set of people whose job was to get me set up and go. And then I would do what I have to do. Now, very simple things like something is not working on my computer is not something that gets sorted out so easily because there's no engineer coming to you.
Yeah.
The engineer takes charge of the desktop and then he is working on your desktop and he's talking to you and is asking you to help him. And a lot of comical situation are guys not able to understand where is the cursor, where is the folder, and how do you, and the fellow on the other side is giving you instruction. So a lot of funny moments. I think what has helped us is humility. Just to accept that this is not a situation that is familiar to you.
Yes.
Just be humble. Just start learning, and say you don't know how to do this.
Yeah, don't hesitate to
don't
ask
hesitate to seek for help.
Yes, seek for help, howsoever senior you may be.
Correct.
Right?
Personally speaking, after about 15 days of this thing, I realized if I don't have a haircut, I will go mad. So I kind of developed a barber at home. I got my son to learn how to haircut.
Okay.
And then we cut each other's hair.
Yeah.
I still believe he did a better job than I did. And those are the things that we are learning. Enjoy this is also a part of life.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, Shivangi, I think we have about 10 to 15 minutes now, and we can take few questions from the audience.
Absolutely. So there are 2-3 issues which have been continuous across panels, and I believe that this is the panel to address these questions. So I'm going to bring them up first. One is this whole aspect of salary cards, employee retention via ESOPs and other methods, which I think are very relevant where startups are concerned because there's not much of a runway with most. And the second is also in terms of recruitment, deferring offers, how do you manage that part of it? Because this has been a very key question that has been posed to us again and again, which I don't think we've gotten satisfactory answers to.
Okay, so what I will do is I will try to give my perspective, and then Rahul and Vishwanath, please feel free to add what you think. Now, as we all know and as we all accept that we are going through some very, very challenging times, and it's not just a particular country or a particular industry. Everybody is going through those tough times. So as a company, our customers are also stressed, and in turn we are stressed, and people who are providing services to our customers or to us, our vendors also are stressed. And definitely what is going to happen is this is going to pose challenges in terms of the costs you are incurring, because what we are seeing is that there is a huge dip in revenues, and either dip is immediately it is because of the lockdown, but then it's not that situation is going to go away in next month or so. Unless and until a cure is found, a vaccine is out there, this situation is going to continue, right? So one, psychologically we have to accept that this is going to be very, very painful, and we have to take the pain. Now, once we accept that, then company by company, given what your situation is, you need to see what is the best way in terms of conserving your cash. I think the saying, cash is king, right? There is no other time which is more relevant for this saying than what it is today. So what we all have to do is, what are the steps we need to take in terms of conserving our cash? And obviously, the immediate thing is all your discretionary spends, right? You need to immediately stop those discretionary spends. In terms of essential spends, again, you need to prioritize, right? What is it that you can postpone? Because at this point of time, what is critical for everyone, and especially for startups and small and medium organizations, is that how are you going to survive? Right? And obviously, at some point of time, the question is going to be, because for most of the industries, and especially in the service industry, right, a huge part of your cost is your manpower cost. Now, again, that what we will have to see is that what are the things, what are the steps we can take, right, so that we do not have to, as a management, take that very, very harsh step of laying off your employees. That should be the last resort. So before that, right, whatever you can do, and again, here, the top management, the founders, the executive management, the leadership team, they have to set an example. They have to be role models. So they will have to take the biggest cuts, but then it's also not that only they take the cuts because the situation is so desperate and so bad that everybody will have to take some cut as far as your salaries are concerned. I'm not even talking about, because this is the month of April and most of the appraisal cycles are in April, May, or June. I think that is a given that this year there are not going to be any salary hikes or any promotion. But then we all also have to ready to take pay cuts so that we can avoid, as far as possible, laying off our people. What my
Vishwanath,
thought
Rahul,
is.
any
And
thoughts?
Vishwanath and Rahul, yeah.
Vishwanath, if I may.
Sure, sure. Please go ahead.
All right. So, as an HR head of a company, these are real challenges that I face. First and foremost, there is no way out of this. These are real challenges and they have to be executed. Second, the lesser you delegate, the better it is. So between me and my recruitment head, talent acquisition head, between two of us, we are doing most of these conversations where we are delaying recruitment. Between me and my business HR leaders and the CEOs, we have discussed to talk to our employees in each vertical where we have implemented salary cuts. And one has to explain, and this is a tireless job. You know, if you have 500 employees who have taken the hit, each one of them deserve your time, each one of them have to be talked to, and therefore you have to be available for this discussion. Uh, it is a painful discussion, and for many people, they are walking a tightrope. Their resources are stretched. You will need to figure out ways of helping them within whatever resources you have. But an advice is not to dilute your stance or decide it case by case. You have to be consistent, because part of fairness is being consistent with your action. And last but not the least, if you haven't done it for yourself, if you haven't set your example correctly, you will find it very difficult to look in the eye and explain to people.
Right.
So, starting with board members, going down, uh, it has to be done. Uh, and what I like about Indian managers is that the sense of loyalty or commitment to a greater cause is good. And therefore, most people have accepted this uh, in a sporting fashion. I must also share with everybody that we are still walking a tightrope. We don't know what future holds. So this may not be the only pain that you will face. There will be more to come. But maintain your leadership stance. Be humane. Give time to people. This is not one of those things which is standing between you and your work and or you and your other meetings. This is the most important thing you're doing, because you're handling your biggest asset, your people. Vishwanath.
Right.
I think Rahul put it very nicely. It will be a very hard conversation to have. It will be a very hard decision to take. But I think Rahul made 2-3 very strong points. Do not delegate this critical conversation. It's best managed from the top. As Vinod also said, see, people are saying, some of them are saying it will be a V recovery, where after this corona thing is done, the economy will pick up immediately. Somebody is saying, no, it will be a U, which means it will take longer. We don't know. But depending on which industry you are in, the recovery, I can reasonably say, is going to be 3 months away, 6 months away, or worse, 9 months away. Right? And that is the kind of time frame we are talking. So given that, this unfavorable decision may have to be taken, and it's best that as Rahul and Vinod said, all these key decisions are done top down rather than bottom up. That's from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think we've run out of time. We're short on time for the next question. Any quick thoughts that the panelists would like to share with the audience, keeping in mind that we have largely a startup audience? Any final bits of advice before we close the session?
So I think to the startups, what I would like to say is that this is something which is very difficult, very challenging. And what startups have to focus on, as I said, at this point of time, is to see how they can survive. Right. So they have to figure out how they can extend the runway so that the cash they have lasts for at least a year, because the recovery is not going to be in next 2 or 3 months. It is going to take 6 to 12 months. And what it means is that you need to survive till then. Only if you are able to survive, then you can grab hold of the opportunities which are going to be presented, because obviously in every crisis there are few opportunities which are presented, but only if you survive, you will be able to get hold of those opportunities, right, and thrive. So that is what I think the message to startups is. Now, as Vishwanath said, depending on which vertical, which industry you are, the recovery may be 6 months to 12 months or more than 12 months, right? And there are few verticals like hospitality, travel, right? Offline retail, right? These are the verticals which are going to be the most impacted. And if your startup is in one of these verticals, or if you have just started, it also might not be a bad idea to look very, very critically into what you are doing, what your business is, and maybe pivot, right? Because we also need to be practical. This is not one of those regular crises which we are into, because as we all know, in a startup world, right, you get from one crisis to the other, right? And the founders, right, they have the ability, they have the passion, they have the wherewithal to get from one crisis to other and thrive. But then this is a crisis which none of us, not even two generations prior to us, have seen, right? This is something which we had either read as part of the history books or as part of the science fiction, right? So let's keep that in mind. And my best wishes to everyone. Stay safe and take care of your and your family's health in these crucial times.
Thank you, Vinod. I think Vishwanath, Rahul, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for being on
Thank
our
you.
panel and sharing your insights with our audience. We did try to cover most of the questions. In case the participants would like to mail in any more questions, please try and get them answered offline by our panelists.
Sure.
Sure. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shivangi.
Stay
Thank
safe.
you, Vinod.
Shivangi.
Thank you, Shivangi. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Vishwanath. It was
Thank
great
you.
talking to you guys. All
Thank
the
you.
best.
All the best.
Take care.
Take care.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Thank you.